So my journey started when I was 9.
I studied 11th and 12th in Sri Chaitanya.
In this journey, Infinity Learn Meta app helped me a lot.
My faculty always clarified my doubts whenever I had any. Thank you Sri Chaitanya and Infinity Learn for making this possible.
Hello everyone, good afternoon, and here I am back again on the third day of your revision. I am Tania, and today the topic and the unit that we are going to finish is the reproduction unit. Okay, so before I start the session, I just want to tell you all that before we move into the session, do share this session with all your friends so that we all can revise together. Also, there is a link given in the description box, and I request all of you to fill that form because that form is going to help you a lot. You know, if there are any queries, and you will actually get a lot of benefit out of it. You can get different notes in that, and whatever queries you have, whatever questions you can have about the session, about the notes, about different types of courses, you can get all the information over there. So do fill the form which is given in the description box. Okay, the link is given. All right. So today we are going to start with this unit, which is reproduction. Yesterday you already had one chapter from this unit, that was sexual reproduction in flowering plants, and today the remaining 3 chapters of the unit we are going to cover. All right. Whatever queries you will be having, please keep them coming in the chat box. I will try to solve as many questions as I can, and so stay tuned, and let's cover this unit today. All right. So here we are going to cover this unit, which consists of 3 chapters. Basically, it consists of 4 chapters. But yesterday, Beena ma'am has already done one chapter, which was sexual reproduction in flowering plants. And today, the remaining 3 chapters I'm going to cover with you guys, which is reproduction in organisms. Then we have human reproduction, and lastly, reproductive health. All right. This is also one of the most important units in your biology, okay, whether it's considered for the board examination or even for the NEET examination, okay. So सब लोग बहुत ही ज़्यादा concentration के साथ यहाँ पे रहेंगे, and we are going to cover all the 3 chapters, right? I've already told my name. My name is Tanya, okay. All right, let's get started. The first chapter that we are going to begin is reproduction in organism. All right. So first of all, let's understand what exactly is reproduction. Let us define कि reproduction exactly होता क्या है. So what is reproduction? Reproduction is defined as a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young ones, जिसे हम offspring भी कहते हैं, similar to itself. Okay, here you have to make sure this is similar. Similar does not mean identical. Similar. क्योंकि सारे रिप्रोडक्शन, हमारे पास 2 तरह के रिप्रोडक्शन प्रोसेसेस होती है. वन इज एसेक्सुअल एंड द अदर वन इज सेक्सुअल, राइट. तो हर तरह के रिप्रोडक्शन में आइडेंटिकल ऑफस्प्रिंग्स नहीं होते, बट इट इज सिमिलर टू इटसेल्फ. तो रिप्रोडक्शन क्या होता है? रिप्रोडक्शन इज बेसिकली अ बायोलॉजिकल प्रोसेस जिसमें आपके जो इंडिविजुअल हैं वो अपने तरह के इंडिविजुअल को बर्थ देते हैं, ठीक है. They give rise to young ones, or else we can say that they give rise to offspring, because the second generation, the next generation is known as offspring. Okay? Alright, so majorly there are 2 types of reproduction. We all know one is asexual reproduction and the other one is sexual reproduction. Alright, by the name itself, it's pretty clear. When we say asexual reproduction, it means कि यहाँ पे involvement नहीं होगी 2 different sexes की. Right? And when I say sexual reproduction, matlab 2 different types of sexes are involved in the given process, right? So we're going to start with the asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction में क्या होता है? In this mode of reproduction, a new offspring is produced by the involvement or participation of single parent only. मतलब कि यहाँ पे 2 डिफरेंट तरह के सेक्सेस इन्वॉल्व्ड नहीं होते. ऐसा नहीं है कि एक मेल है एक फीमेल है, दोनों के गैमीट्स फ्यूज करेंगे एंड देन द ऑफस्प्रिंग विल बी बोर्न. नो, इन asexual reproduction it's pretty clear that sexes are not involved over here. Okay, there is involvement of only single parent, and क्योंकि यहाँ पे सिर्फ एक ही single parent या फिर एक ही parent involve होता है इस particular process में, that is why the offsprings which are born in this process are identical to their parents. Okay, they are not just similar, but they are exact copies of their parents, right? The produced offspring are not only identical or not only similar, but they are exact copies of their parent. Why? Because in this process, a single parent divides itself to reproduce the offspring. तो basically यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है कि हमारे पास कोई वेरिएशन नहीं है. ऐसा नहीं है कि दो डिफरेंट गैमीट्स आ रहे हैं तो दोनों के कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स मिक्स होंगे तब जाके एक नया ऑफस्प्रिंग बनेगा. नहीं, हम यहाँ पे एक ही पेरेंट है हमारे पास जो अपनी एग्जैक्ट कॉपी को प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है, राइट? That is why in the process of asexual reproduction, the offsprings are exact copies of their parents, right? Moving ahead, अगर हम different types of asexual reproduction की बात करते हैं, so we have various types. We have budding, fragmentation, binary fission, or we can say just fission. And fission के different types होते हैं, binary and multiple भी होता है. Then we have vegetative propagation. All right. अब हम एक एक प्रोसेस को डिटेल में देख लेते हैं एक बार. सबसे पहले लेट्स टॉक अबाउट बाइनरी फिजन. ओके, फिजन का मतलब क्या होता है? टू ब्रेक. ठीक है. सो व्हेन आई से बाइनरी फिजन, मतलब कि एक ऑर्गेनिज्म अपने आप को दो डिफरेंट इंडिविजुअल्स में ब्रेक डाउन कर रहा है, राइट? बाइनरी मीन्स व्हाट? टू. ओके, सो here when I talk about binary fission, so binary fission भी क्या होता है? बहुत different तरीके के होते हैं. एक होता है आपका irregular fission जिसमें जो organism है उसका कोई specific shape नहीं है, ठीक है? And you know the most considered example would be amoeba, क्योंकि amoeba कैसा होता है? Irregular shape का होता है. So यहाँ पे जरूरी नहीं है that the fission is going to be longitudinal या फिर transverse, इस तरीके से नहीं होगा. amoeba में जो fission है वो कहीं से भी हो सकता है. Okay, कैसे भी हो सकता है. So here you can see this. Here we have parent amoeba. ये उसका रहा न्यूक्लियस, सॉरी, ये रहा उसका न्यूक्लियस, साइटोप्लाज्म. एंड यहाँ पे जो आपका फिजन है उसका कोई स्पेसिफिक शेप नहीं है. ओके, कोई स्पेसिफिक शेप नहीं है यहाँ पे. सो इट एक्चुअली डिवाइड्स इटसेल्फ इनटू टू डॉटर सेल्स. सो सबसे पहले क्या होता है? यहाँ पे उसका न्यूक्लियस डिवाइड होता है. कभी भी when we talk about asexual reproduction, सबसे पहले जो डिविजन होगा वो आपका न्यूक्लियस का डिविजन होगा. ठीक है, सबसे पहले the process will take place that is karyokinesis. Karyokinesis in the sense division of the nucleus. ठीक है, so this is the parent amoeba. हो गया आपका elongation of nucleus. elongation होने के बाद divide हो गया nucleus. After the division of nucleus, the cytoplasm is going to get divided over here. ठीक है, जैसे ही आपका cytoplasm divide हो गया, one parent amoeba gives rise to two daughter cells, and that is how binary fission takes place in amoeba. Okay, and as I told you, क्योंकि कोई specific shape नहीं होता है amoeba का यहाँ पे, so that is why this in amoeba ऐसे कोई specific binary fission नहीं होता है. But when I talk about different types of binary fission, so एक होता है longitudinal. Okay, then there is transverse binary fission as well. अगर मैं longitudinal की बात करती हूँ, so if there is an organism, इसका example हो जाएगा यूग्लिना. Okay, yeah, longitudinal में if this is the organism, it's going to get divided like this only. Okay, ये भी ऑफ कोर्स दो अपने ऑफस्प्रिंग्स को प्रोड्यूस करेगा, बट यहाँ पे यूग्लिना के केस में क्या होगा? द बाइनरी फिजन दैट विल टेक प्लेस वुड बी लॉन्गिट्यूडिनल ओनली. ठीक है, तो ऑर्गेनिज्म क्या होगा? लॉन्गिट्यूडिनली डिवाइड करेगा एंड देन इट विल हैव टू डॉटर सेल्स. ठीक है, अब अगर मैं ट्रांसवर्स की बात करूं, ट्रांसवर्स इज बेसिकली दिस वन, हॉरिजॉन्टल वाला इज नोन एज ट्रांसवर्स. इसका एग्जांपल हो जाएगा पैरामीशियम. ठीक है, वी नो इट्स अ स्लिपर शेप ऑर्गेनिज्म. So, like this is paramecium. This is going to divide like this. Transverse binary fission will take place in paramecium, okay? And then in the same way, it will also have two daughter cells, okay? So that was all about binary fission. Fission का एक और example होता है, which is multiple fission, जिसमें होता तो fission ही है, लेकिन जो daughter cells बनती है वो दो नहीं, but दो से बहुत ज्यादा बनते हैं. When there are more than two daughter cells forming, okay, then we call it multiple fission. And when I talk about multiple fission, here the example would be plasmodium. ठीक है? Now let's come to another process, which is budding. Budding takes place in yeast. Okay, yeast is one of the examples. तो budding में क्या हो जाता है? Here you can see this is the parent yeast cell. ये रहा उसका vacuole, ये रहा उसका nucleus. Okay, this is the nucleus. अब यहाँ पे उस parent yeast में एक छोटा सा outgrowth होता है. एक उस छोटे से outgrowth को हम क्या कहते हैं? This is known as bud formation. All right, bud formation होता है, and then that bud starts growing और उस bud के separately nucleus और cytoplasm क्या होता है? Develop करने लगता है. And as soon as the bud is fully grown, वो क्या करता है? वो parent body से detach हो जाता है. Okay? वो parent body से detach हो जाता है, and that is how it can have a different offspring like this. ठीक है? या तो वो पेरेंट बॉडी से डिटैच हो जाएगा, दो कंडीशंस होती है. जब वो फुल्ली ग्रोन हो जाता है, या तो वो पेरेंट बॉडी से क्या कर जाता है? वो डिटैच कर जाता है. डिटैच कर जाएगा तो वो एक नया ऑफस्प्रिंग बन जाएगा. करेक्ट? अदर देन दैट, इफ इट्स नॉट गेटिंग डिटैच्ड, व्हाट हैपेंस हियर इज कि वो अपने साथ एक बड्स की चेन बना लेता है. इट्स अ चेन ऑफ यीस्ट सेल्स. ओके, एंड देन दे फुल्ली ग्रो टुगेदर, and then slowly one by one they start getting detached, and that is how it can have different offsprings together. Okay, so that is how budding takes place. Budding also takes place in hydra. Hydra is also one of the example. ठीक है, this much is clear. ठीक है, moving ahead. Now here we have different asexual reproductive structures. ठीक है, so डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनिजम्स में, डिफरेंट प्लांट बॉडीज में हमारे पास डिफरेंट डिफरेंट एसेक्सुअल स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं. ओके, और वही एसेक्सुअल स्ट्रक्चर्स आगे जाके नया प्लांट बॉडी या नए ऑफस्प्रिंग को बनाने में हेल्पफुल होते हैं. राइट? फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ वी सी ओवर हियर, दिस इज योर क्लेमाइडोमोनास. ठीक है, यहाँ पे यू कैन सी जू स्पोर्स आर प्रेजेंट. ठीक है, ये जो जू स्पोर है क्लेमाइडोमोनास में, यू नो, These are basically the reproductive structures, क्योंकि यही zoo spores क्या करते हैं? क्लेमाइडोमोनास को अपने ऑफस्प्रिंग प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए हेल्पफुल होते हैं. राइट? नाउ इफ आई टॉक अबाउट पेनिसिलियम, पेनिसिलियम के जो रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर्स है वो क्या है? कोनिडिया. ऑलराइट, अगर मैं यहाँ पे स्पॉन्ज की बात करती हूँ, स्पॉन्ज के स्ट्रक्चर्स क्या है? These are the gemmules. ठीक है, यहाँ पे हमारे पास हाइड्रा भी है. दिस इज हाइड्रा. हाइड्रा का रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर क्या होगा? बड. Just now I told you that budding takes place in hydra as well, right? तो hydra का reproductive structure क्या हो जाएगा? Bud हो जाएगा. So basically what happens is that every organism or every plant body would have certain reproductive structures, and those reproductive structures help these organisms to produce their specific offsprings. Correct? Okay. Now, vegetative propagules and angiosperms. Angiosperms क्या होते हैं? We know when the plant body is divided into specific segments. They have root, they have stem, they are fruit bearing, they are flower bearing. Correct? These are the angiosperms. अब there's a process which is vegetative propagation. Okay, it's called vegetative propagation. वेजिटेटिव प्रोपेगेशन में क्या होता है कि एक प्लांट है. ओके, इफ वी टेक द स्मॉल पोर्शन ऑफ दैट पार्ट, ओके, दैट पर्टिकुलर प्लांट, इफ वी टेक अ स्मॉल पोर्शन ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर प्लांट और उसे हम प्रॉपर नरिशमेंट दें, वी गिव दैट पार्ट ऑफ द प्लांट अ फेवरेबल एनवायरमेंट वेयर वी आर गिविंग ऑल द एसेंशियल न्यूट्रिएंट्स टू दैट पार्ट ऑफ द प्लांट, सो दैट पार्ट ऑफ द प्लांट विल ग्रो इनटू अ फुल्ली ग्रोन न्यू प्लांट. Okay, So that is what exactly vegetative propagation is all about. All right. अब यहाँ पे we have certain vegetative propagules, means the structures which are helpful in producing a whole new grown plant, that is known as vegetative propagules, right? यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो, these are the germinating eye buds, ठीक है, इनको हम eyes of potato बोलते हैं. अगर हम ginger की बात करें, so we have the nodes in ginger, we have certain buds, ठीक है, इनकी adventitious roots हैं यहाँ पे. Okay, so certainly adventitious buds, adventitious roots, and eyes of potato, all of that are considered as vegetative propagules. Why are they considered as vegetative propagules? Because if we take that part of the plant and if we provide them with essential nutrients, if we give them the favorable environment and all the nutrients which are needed for their particular growth, then they can grow into a whole new plant. Okay, that is why they are known as vegetative propagules, क्योंकि इन structures से हम vegetative propagation कर सकते हैं. All right. Okay. Other than that, we also had one more. Yes, we also had one more process which is fragmentation. Fragmentation का example I'll explain you here itself. इसका example होता है planaria. So planaria में क्या होता है? Fragmentation is basically a technique. Suppose ये आपका planaria है, okay? और by certain accident or by certain situations इसके 3 हिस्से हो गए. 1, 2, 3. इसके 3 different parts हो गए. So planaria has that capability कि जो first part है या उसके different parts हैं वो पूरा full grown planaria बना सकते हैं. अगर ये अलग हो गए, so यहाँ पे हो गया आपका part 1, this is your part 2 and this is your part 3. But planaria is that organism जिसमें fragmentation की process होती है जिससे वो अपने offspring को बनाते हैं, right? So it has the capability कि जो first वाला अलग हुआ है वो second और third को बना लेगा, जो second वाला अलग हुआ है वो first और third को बना लेगा, जो third वाला अलग हुआ है वो first और second को बना लेगा. That means from this process we'll have 3 different full grown planaria. Okay, so that is how the fragmentation process takes place, and the example, the concerned example which we always take for fragmentation is planaria. Okay. Alright, so we are done with budding, fragmentation, fission, vegetative propagation. This was all about asexual reproduction. Okay. Now let's come to sexual reproduction. Alright. Okay, so now we are done with asexual reproduction and now we'll be starting sexual reproduction. Okay, so what is sexual reproduction? By the name itself, it's pretty clear that it will have different sexes. Okay, sexual reproduction involves the formation of the male and female gametes either by the same individual or by different individuals of the opposite sex. मतलब यहाँ पे 2 different sexes involved है. One should be the male and the other should be the female. या तो हो सकता है कि मेल और फीमेल गैमीट्स एक ही ऑर्गेनिज्म की बॉडी में प्रेजेंट हो, या फिर हो सकता है हम 2 डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनिजम्स की बॉडी से मेल गैमीट अलग और फीमेल गैमीट अलग से लेके हम फ्यूज कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, बट वन थिंग इज फॉर श्योर कि व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन, यहाँ पे देयर शुड बी इन्वॉल्वमेंट ऑफ 2 डिफरेंट गैमीट्स, दैट इज मेल गैमीट एंड female gametes. ठीक है. Now, if we talk about the complete process of sexual reproduction, it consists of a set of events. Okay. एक आपका होगा pre-fertilization, then होगा fertilization, and then there will be post-fertilization. Okay. No, lizards, lizards do not have totipotency. I know we make this joke out of it that if we cut the tail of the lizard, so a new lizard will be formed. It doesn't happen like that. If we cut the tail of the lizard, still the lizard can be alive, but that doesn't mean if you cut the tail of the lizard, from that tail a new lizard can form. That doesn't happen. So lizards do not have totipotency. Alright, so now let's come back again to sexual reproduction. So here we are going to talk about a set of events, that is pre-fertilization, fertilization and then post-fertilization. Alright, if I talk about pre-fertilization, in pre-fertilization हमारे पास दो events होते हैं, एक होता है gametogenesis और एक होता है gamete transfer. Gametogenesis, जेनेसिस मतलब कि कुछ बन रहा है, क्या बन रहा है, गैमीट बन रहा है. सो गैमेटोजेनेसिस में क्या बनेगा, आपका गैमीट का फॉर्मेशन होगा. एंड देन गैमीट ट्रांसफर, ट्रांसफर मतलब ऑफ कोर्स हमें ट्रांसफर करना पड़ेगा दोनों को फ्यूज कराने के लिए, राइट. तो ये आपके हो गए इवेंट्स कहाँ के, प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन के. फर्टिलाइजेशन के प्रोसेस के पहले जिन इवेंट्स का होना जरूरी है, दैट इंक्लूड्स गैमेटोजेनेसिस एंड गैमीट ट्रांसफर, राइट. अगर बात करती हूँ फर्टिलाइजेशन की, फर्टिलाइजेशन मतलब क्या होता है, फर्टिलाइजेशन इज बेसिकली फ्यूजन ऑफ द मेल एंड फीमेल गैमीट, राइट. सो द फ्यूजन ऑफ गैमीट इज नोन एज फर्टिलाइजेशन. अब फर्टिलाइजेशन आपके दो तरीके के हो जाते हैं. एक होता है एक्सटर्नल, जो कि ऑर्गेनिज्म की बॉडी के बाहर फर्टिलाइजेशन होगा, दैट इज एक्सटर्नल. एक होता है इंटरनल, अगर ऑर्गेनिज्म की बॉडी के अंदर फर्टिलाइजेशन हो रहा है, दैट इज कंसिडर्ड एज इंटरनल फर्टिलाइजेशन. ठीक है. अब आपका हो गया फर्टिलाइजेशन. फर्टिलाइजेशन मतलब आपके गैमीट्स क्या हो गए, फ्यूज कर गए. ठीक है, फ्यूजन ऑफ द गैमीट्स हो गया. नाउ वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट पोस्ट फर्टिलाइजेशन, मतलब फर्टिलाइजेशन के बाद कौन से इवेंट्स होते हैं. एक होता है जाइगोट फॉर्मेशन, जब आपके गैमीट्स आपस में फ्यूज कर जाएंगे तो क्या बनेगा, जाइगोट बनेगा. तो जाइगोट का फॉर्मेशन कब हो रहा है, फर्टिलाइजेशन के बाद हो रहा है. दैट इज व्हाई इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ पोस्ट फर्टिलाइजेशन इवेंट. ठीक है, जाइगोट फॉर्मेशन हो गया. उसके बाद होता है एम्ब्रियोजेनेसिस. जाइगोट से क्या बनता है, जाइगोट से आपका बनेगा एम्ब्रियो. एम्ब्रियो को पूरा नरिशमेंट मिले ताकि वो एक यंग ऑफस्प्रिंग के रूप में बर्थ ले सके, दैट इज द प्रोसेस जिसे हम क्या कहते हैं, एम्ब्रियोजेनेसिस. ठीक है. सो दीज आर द इवेंट्स जिसके बारे में हम पढ़ने वाले हैं, प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन, फर्टिलाइजेशन एंड पोस्ट फर्टिलाइजेशन. करेक्ट. ओके, सबसे पहले हम बात करते हैं प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन इवेंट्स की. प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन मतलब फर्टिलाइजेशन या फ्यूजन ऑफ गैमीट्स के पहले जो इवेंट हो रहे हैं, दैट इज योर प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन. ठीक. इट इंक्लूड्स ऑल द इवेंट्स ऑफ सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन प्रायर टू द फ्यूजन ऑफ द गैमीट्स. फर्टिलाइजेशन या फ्यूजन ऑफ गैमीट्स के पहले जितने इवेंट्स होंगे प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन, कौन कौन से होते हैं, गैमेटोजेनेसिस एंड गैमीट ट्रांसफर. गैमेटोजेनेसिस मतलब फॉर्मेशन ऑफ गैमीट्स. ठीक है. फॉर्मेशन ऑफ गैमीट्स एंड देन कम्स योर गैमीट ट्रांसफर. ठीक है. सो हियर सबसे पहले हम बढ़ते हैं गैमेटोजेनेसिस के बारे में. अब गैमेटोजेनेसिस रेफर्स टू द प्रोसेस ऑफ फॉर्मेशन ऑफ टू टाइप्स ऑफ गैमीट्स. एक आपका होता है मेल और एक आपका होता है फीमेल. ठीक है. फीमेल जो आपका गैमीट है दैट इज योर ओवम, कंसिडर इट एज ओवम. मेल गैमीट क्या हो गया, आपका स्पर्म हो गया. तो स्पर्म के फॉर्मेशन की प्रोसेस को हम क्या कहेंगे, स्पर्मेटोजेनेसिस. ओके. ओवम के बनने की प्रोसेस को हम क्या कहेंगे, oogenesis. सो दिस इज द प्रोसेस ऑफ गैमेटोजेनेसिस, जहां पे आपके दोनों गैमीट्स क्या हो रहे हैं, तैयार हो रहे हैं. नाउ हम एक कंपैरेटिव स्टडी करेंगे सो दैट वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट हाउ द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ स्पर्म टेक्स प्लेस एंड देन वी कैन स्टडी दैट हाउ द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ ओवम टेक्स प्लेस. ठीक है. सबसे पहली चीज तो क्रोमोसोम कितने होते हैं पर सेल, हमें पता है कितने होते हैं, 46 होते हैं. सबसे पहले लेट्स टॉक अबाउट स्पर्मेटोजेनेसिस. ठीक है. हाँ जी. सो प्यूबर्टी जैसे ही हिट करती है तब से आपकी स्पर्मेटोजेनेसिस की प्रोसेस चालू हो जाती है, स्पर्म बनना चालू हो जाता है बॉडी में. ठीक है. हमें पता है कि एक सेल में कितने क्रोमोसोम्स है, 46 है. हियर ऑब्वियसली वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट ह्यूमंस. ठीक है. एक सेल में कितने क्रोमोसोम है, 46 है और वो पेयर में प्रेजेंट है, सो 23 पेयर्स ऑफ क्रोमोसोम्स. ठीक है. नाउ इफ यू सी एट प्यूबर्टी, सबसे पहले आपका एक सेल आता है विच इज स्पर्मेटोगोनिया. ठीक है. स्पर्मेटोगोनिया ये कौन सा डिफरेंशिएशन कर रहा है, माइटोसिस. माइटोसिस किस तरीके का सेल डिवीजन होता है, दिस इज योर इक्वेशनल. ठीक है. इक्वेशनल मतलब अगर स्पर्मेटोगोनिया डिप्लॉयड है तो वो अपने तरीके के ही सेल्स बनाएगा, मतलब वो डिप्लॉयड ही बनाएगा. सो व्हाट इज ही मेकिंग, ही इज मेकिंग प्राइमरी स्पर्मेटोसाइट. कैसे बने ये? डिप्लॉइड बने. क्यों डिप्लॉइड बने? क्योंकि यहाँ पे माइटोसिस हुआ है. और माइटोसिस किस तरीके का डिवीजन होता है? माइटोसिस होता है इक्वेशनल डिवीजन. अगर मेरे पास 2n है तो मैं 2n ही बनाऊंगी इफ आई एम डूइंग माइटोसिस. ठीक है, ऑल राइट. Okay, I'm trying to manage in both the languages, guys. ठीक है? If there is certain words or there are certain sentences which you're not able to understand, tell me the sentence and then I'm going to continue in the, respective language. But I'm trying to explain in both the language so that it's easier for everyone to understand, okay? But I'm trying to manage in both the languages. Okay, let's carry on. So one is spermatogonia. ठीक है? It is diploid. It did the mitotic division. Okay, mitotic means equational. That is why first of all we have primary spermatocytes. So these are also going to be diploid in nature, means 2n. All right. Now after that the first meiotic division takes place over here. First meiotic. And when I talk about meiosis, it is basically reductional. Reductional means if the spermatocyte was 2n, it's going to form secondary spermatocyte which will be haploid in nature. Haploid in nature, why? Because the reductional division is taking place over here. Reductional. Okay, so from diploid cells, we will make haploid cells. Alright, there will be reduction in the ploidy level over here. Now, this happened after the first meiotic division. Then we got secondary spermatocytes. Okay, now the secondary spermatocyte undergoes second meiotic division. Okay, second meiotic division happens over here. Okay, so that is how what we'll get. We'll get 4 spermatids over here, and 4 spermatids will make 4 spermatozoa or 4 sperm cells over here, which will be diploid in nature. Sorry, which will be haploid in nature. Okay, which will be haploid in nature. Why? Because it comes after 2 meiotic divisions. The first meiotic division takes place. Okay, after the first meiotic division, we got secondary spermatocyte. Then the second meiotic division takes place. Then we get the spermatids. Okay, so if there are 4 spermatids, it means it is going to form 4 sperms only. All right. Okay, now if you see over here, when I talk about this primary spermatocytes, okay, if I have one primary spermatocyte over here, it gives me, here I will have 4 spermatids. So by this, if you understand that if there is one spermatocyte, it is going to give me 4 spermatids. Okay, and I know that if I have 4 spermatids, it means I will have 4 sperm cells, right? So by this, what do you understand over here? That from one spermatocyte, I'm basically getting 4 sperms here. Okay, so that is how the spermatogenesis is done. As soon as the meiotic division takes place, the chromosome number will be half. Why? Because meiosis is basically a reductional equation. Okay. And when I talk about mitosis, in mitosis the chromosome number doesn't change. But when I talk about meiosis, and meiosis is the process that takes place when we are going to divide the germ cells, right? So whenever we are dividing the germ cells, at that particular portion, meiotic cell division is taking place. And that is why the chromosome number will be reduced over here, right? And that is why when the sperms are formed, they are also haploid in nature and they have 23 number of chromosomes only. Correct? So that was about the spermatogenesis or the male gamete formation. Okay? Is this clear? Okay. So now we are done with spermatogenesis and now we'll be focusing on oogenesis or formation of the female gamete, which is ovum, right? See, it's very different from the sperm. Okay, and the female body itself is very different from the male body because it's much more complicated. When I talk about the formation of the ovum, the formation actually starts from the fetal life itself. Okay, from the fetal life itself it starts. Why? Because when a fetus is there, a female fetus is there, it has one oogonia. Okay, one oogonia cell is there. Okay, then the mitosis differentiation takes place. Mitosis means diploid only, right? Now, it becomes primary oocyte. So, till fetal life, we have primary oocyte in our body. Okay, the formation of the primary oocyte is taking place till the fetal life. All right. Now, after the girl hits puberty, the first meiotic division is completed. First meiotic means here reductional division is taking place and the ploidy is going to get reduced. Okay, so from 2n we're going to have n now. So after the girl hits puberty, the primary oocyte completes its first meiotic division and it makes secondary oocyte and first polar body. Okay, secondary oocyte and first polar body. Secondary oocyte is the structure that we get at the time of ovulation. Secondary oocyte is basically the structure that we get at the time of ovulation. Okay. Along with the secondary oocyte, first polar body is there. Okay. When I talk about the first polar body, it actually degenerates when the fertilization takes place. And here we are making first polar body. So if you see that there's a difference in the size of first polar body and the secondary oocyte. Why? Because for us the secondary oocyte is important. So that most of the nutrition and most of the nourishment goes to secondary oocyte. That is the reason that first polar body and secondary oocyte are formed together, so that we don't really need the first polar body. It can degenerate. Okay, it will get degenerated at the time of fertilization basically. All right. So here what we understood is that at the time of ovulation, the body which is getting released is the secondary oocyte. Okay, and after this, the second meiotic division takes place at the time of fertilization when the ovum, not the ovum, when the secondary oocyte meets the sperm. Okay, at the time of fertilization. So when the fertilization takes place, then the secondary oocyte is converted or is transformed into an ovum along with the second polar body. Okay, so that is how the process of oogenesis takes place. So by this what you understand? By this what you understand is that in the female body, until and unless the sperm is not entering, it's not getting fused with the secondary oocyte, the second meiotic division is not taking place. Because the second meiotic division will only take place when the fusion of sperm and secondary oocyte is taking place, and after that the body which is formed is known as ovum. All right, and here the process of formation of the female gamete actually starts from fetal life itself. Okay, we have one primary oocyte, and here also one more thing is there. If we have one primary oocyte, unlike the sperms, it is going to make one ovum. Okay, there one spermatocyte was making 4 sperms, but here one oocyte is going to make one ovum only. All right, so that is how the oogenesis process or the formation of ovum is different from the formation of sperm. Okay, but this was the first pre-fertilization process that we have seen, which was gametogenesis. Clear? Is this clear? Okay, moving ahead, now we'll be talking about the category of gametes. So there are basically 2 categories of gametes. One is isogamete and the other one is heterogamete. Isogametes, we can see the example in cladophora. Isogametes are basically similar types of gametes. Okay, here they do not have different sexes. Similar gametes. Whereas if we talk about heterogametes, so hetero means what? It means different. Hetero means different. So if I'm saying that there are heterogametes, so there are different types of gametes, it means that different sexes will be there. Male and female. Okay? So for isogametes, we can take the example of cladophora because they have similar types of gametes. And if I talk about heterogametes, we can take the example of fucus or even Homo sapiens. Okay, we have sperm, ovum, just now we saw. So basically, we can consider our gametes as example of heterogametes. Okay. All right. Now we'll talk about the sexuality in organisms. Okay. Sexual reproduction in organisms generally involves the fusion of gametes from two different individuals. Okay. But this is not always true. Why? In sexual reproduction, basically in sexual reproduction, we know that two different gametes are coming and two different gametes need to get fused, right? But it's not necessary that two different gametes, which is the male gamete and the female gamete, has to come from two different organisms only. You know, there can be an organism, there can be an individual जिसमें male or female gamete दोनों एक ही organism में present है, right? So it's not necessary that the gametes has to come from two different organisms. Okay? All right. Now, sorry. If I talk about plants, plants may have both male and female reproductive structures in the same plant, and that plant will be considered as bisexual. Why the plant is considered as bisexual? Because the plant is having both the gametes, which is male and female gametes, in one body itself. That is why the plant can be considered as bisexual. Still, the reproduction which will take place in the bisexual plants will be sexual reproduction only, because when we talk about sexual reproduction, it is basically the fusion of male and female gamete, right? Now, the plants can have different plants also. The gametes of the plant can be present on different plants as well, which will be known as unisexual. Unisexual means that one plant will have male gamete, another plant will have female gamete. Okay, the male gamete will come and it will get fused with the female gamete, right? Okay, if I talk about several fungi and plants, terms such as homothelic and monoecious are used to denote the bisexual condition. Monoecious means both gametes. Here it means that both gametes are present in one organism. Okay? Whereas if I talk about heterothelic, hetero means different, homo means same. Okay? Whereas hetero means different. So heterothelic or dioecious are the terms used to describe unisexual condition. If I talk about dioecious, so dioecious will have one gamete in one organism. Okay? Is this clear? All right. Now, we are talking about the second pre-fertilization process. The second process which was a part, or the second event which was the part of the pre-fertilization. Okay, that was gamete transfer. So what do we mean by gamete transfer? That obviously we are transferring the gametes. Just now we saw that how the gametes are formed in the process of gametogenesis. Now we'll be talking about the gamete transfer. Okay. So after the formation of male and female gametes, compatible gametes must be physically brought together to facilitate fusion. So once the formation of the gametes is done, whether it's male or female, once the formation of the gametes is done, after that The gametes are physically brought together in order to fuse with each other, okay? Because until and unless the fusion of the gametes won't take place, we cannot complete the process of fertilization, right? So, here if I talk about in new fungi and algae, both types of gametes are motile. What does motile mean? That can travel. Motile means the gamete which can travel. So, in new fungi and algae, both types of gametes are motile. In heterogametic condition, the female is non-motile. Okay? Heterogametic means where we have different gametes in different bodies. ठीक है? So, heterogametic condition में what happens कि जो female gamete होता है वो motile नहीं होता है. इसका मतलब male gamete motile है. So, the male gamete has to come to female gamete and we have to provide them a medium where the male gamete can travel to reach the female gamete, because until and unless the male gamete will not reach the female gamete, the fusion or the fertilization cannot take place. Right? Okay. So, there is a need of a medium through which the male gametes can move. Alright? अगर हम seed plants की बात करते हैं, if we talk about the seed plants, pollen grains are the carrier of male gametes and ovule has the egg. So in seed plants what happens? Pollen grains become the carrier of the male gamete, and if I talk about the ovule, it has the egg. Okay? Right. So these two were the processes or the events which were taking place in pre-fertilization mode. Okay. Now let's come to fertilization. What is fertilization? The most vital event of sexual reproduction is the fusion of gametes, and this process where the fusion of gametes takes place is known as fertilization or syngamy. Okay. So male and female gamete is there. Both the gametes are fused together and that fusion will be known as fertilization. Fertilization also can be distinguished in two types, internal and external. So, internal fertilization is the fertilization which is taking place inside the body of an organism, whereas if I talk about the external fertilization, it is the type of fertilization that is taking place outside the body of an organism. Alright, so here we can clearly see the example. If I talk about external fertilization, so we have fish as an example, frog is also an example over here. So basically what they do is, male fish, you know, they spread over the eggs. They lay eggs. Female fish lay eggs over here and they spread over the eggs. Okay, and that is how the fusion takes place outside the body of an organism. That is why external. Whereas if I talk about internal fertilization, this is seen in humans, mammals, you know, most of the mammals I mean. Humans mainly, where the sperm enters inside the female body and then fertilization of ovum and sperm takes place inside the female body. That is why it is considered as an example of internal fertilization. Okay? Alright. Now, the fertilization is done. So, we'll be talking about the post-fertilization events. That what exactly happens after the process of fertilization. Okay? So, events in sexual reproduction after the formation of zygote are called the post-fertilization event. Why? Because zygote kab banta hai? When the sperm and ovum are fertilized together, they form a fused cell, a fused structure that we call as zygote. So, what is the zygote? Zygote is the first cell of the new generation in all sexually reproducing organisms, because zygote is formed after the fertilization of sperm and ovum. Okay, the fused structure basically. Alright, so the zygote formation will be one event that takes place after fertilization. That is why it is considered as an event of the post-fertilization. And then we have another event which is embryogenesis. Okay, embryogenesis. What is embryogenesis? It is basically the process of development of embryo from the zygote. Zygote is basically the fused structure, right? Zygote is what? Zygote is the fused structure that is formed after the fusion of male and female gametes, right? From the zygote, what is being formed? Embryo is being formed. So the process of development of embryo from the zygote is considered as embryogenesis. Okay. Now, during embryogenesis, zygote, it undergoes cell division. With cell division, it undergoes mitosis. Mitosis is what? It is equational division. Okay. So, during embryogenesis, what happens? Zygote undergoes cell division and cell differentiation. So, the cell division process takes place in zygote. From that, it makes certain structures, morula, blastula, and then the embryo forms. So, the development of the embryo will be considered as embryogenesis. Alright? Okay. So, we had two different events of post-fertilization, zygote formation and embryogenesis. Alright. So that is how we are done with one chapter, that was reproduction in organism, where we have studied about reproduction, types of reproduction, asexual and sexual. Then we studied about different types of asexual reproduction, where we included binary fission, budding, fragmentation, vegetative propagation, and then we came up to sexual reproduction, where we studied about different events happening in sexual reproduction: pre-fertilization, fertilization, post-fertilization. Alright, so that is how we are done with one chapter of the unit, that was reproduction in organism. And now we will be moving ahead with another important chapter of the unit, that is human reproduction. Alright, so let me know how are you liking this session, okay, and keep asking questions, or if there are any queries, if you want me to explain again or in a specific language. I mean, you have two options only, that is Hindi and English. So let me know if you want me to repeat in certain language. I'll try to do that for you guys. Other than that, guys, if you are enjoying the session, if you find this session helpful, do like the session, do share this session. And also, I've been telling you guys again and again, there is a link of the form given in the description. Do fill that form. It's going to be really helpful. Okay, and you can get all the benefits after filling that form. So do not forget to fill the form. Okay, and let's get started now with another chapter, which is human reproduction. Okay. All right, let's get started. Now, again, let's just revise what exactly was reproduction. So, reproduction is the process of giving birth to young ones which are identical to their parents or similar to their parents. Because when we talk about human reproduction, they cannot be identical. Why? Because here variations will take place, right? Because two different gametes are getting involved. Now, we'll talk about the different events which are involved in human reproduction. First is gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? Just now we have seen. It is formation of gametes. Formation of gametes, right? Next is insemination. What is insemination? Okay, what is insemination? Insemination is inserting or insertion of semen into female body. Okay, insertion of the semen into the female body. Then comes fertilization. What is fertilization? Fusion of gametes or syngamy. Okay, so fusion of gametes is fertilization. Then comes formation of zygote. Okay, after the fertilization, just now we saw the first event of the post-fertilization event, that is formation of zygote. Okay, then comes implantation. So basically, just now we saw that once the zygote is formed, it starts the cell division, right? It becomes morula, then blastula. And when that structure attaches to the uterine wall, okay, implantation is attachment to the uterine wall basically. Alright, attachment of that particular structure after cell division has taken place in the zygote, that attachment to the uterine wall will be considered as implantation. क्योंकि वो क्या हो रहा है, वो implant हो जा रहा है, ठीक है, that is why. Then comes gestation, which is basically the pregnancy period of 9 months. Okay. Then parturition, which is the childbirth. Okay, and after the childbirth is done, there comes one more process, which is lactation. Lactation is when the mother feeds the child, you know, milk feeding basically. When the mother feeds the child, that is the process of lactation. So these are the events that we are going to study when it comes to human reproduction. ठीक है? Okay. So सबसे पहले, because we are talking about gametogenesis, so to understand the gametes, it's really important to understand the reproductive system first. Okay, so let's first understand male reproductive system and female reproductive system. Let's start with male reproductive system. Okay, so the male reproductive system, where it is located? It is located in the pelvis region. It includes a pair of testes. Okay, what is the function of testis? Okay, it secretes. Basically, when I talk about testis, it is considered as the primary sex organ. Primary sex organ. And whenever I say primary sex organ, so the function of the primary sex organ, it will be secretion, or you can say formation of the sperm, and also secretion of sex hormone. And in the case of male, the sex hormone is testosterone. Okay, so formation of gamete, formation of the gamete, and hormone secretion. Take. In case of male, the hormone is going to be testosterone. Okay. Now, along with the testes, we have accessory ducts, certain glands, and external genitalia. So the testes are situated outside the abdominal cavity within a pouch called scrotum. Sorry about this line has been cut. Okay. But it was about scrotum only, that I'll tell you. Yes. So the testis is basically, where it is situated? It is situated okay, there are certain questions coming. So let me just tell you that let's just first go with the flow. Okay, you don't have to run ahead of the topic. Okay, just now we have started the male reproductive system. Give it some time. I am going to tell you each and everything which is involved in the system. Okay, so don't run ahead of the topic, because I won't be able to then catch up. Okay, I am teaching you from the scratch. So let me finish one by one. And if you have certain things which you suddenly remember and you think that between the session you'll just pop it up, so that's not how it works. So stay patient. All right. When I talk about the testis, it is situated outside the abdominal cavity within a pouch which is known as scrotum. So the reason being that it is situated outside the abdominal cavity because it needs certain lower temperature to produce the sperm, or for the formation of the sperm, right? And there is also certain tissues present with this scrotum, because at the time of too much heat or too much cold, we can actually contract or relax the pouch, so that the formation of the sperm, the process of formation of the sperm doesn't really get affected. Okay, see, here you can see this is your testis, and here it is present in the scrotum. Okay, where 2 to 2.5 degrees centigrade lower temperature is there for the formation of the sperm. Okay, Rest of the structures I'll just explain you. Now, if I talk about testis, it has 250 compartments which are known as testicular lobules. Okay? It has 250 compartments which are known as testicular lobules. हाँ जी, हिंदी में समझाना है. हिंदी में आपको क्या नहीं समझ में आ रहा, आपको कौन सा सेंटेंस नहीं समझ में आया, आप प्लीज मुझे बता दो, मैं आपको हिंदी में भी एक्सप्लेन कर दूंगी. मैं साइड बाय साइड एम ट्राइंग कि मैं दोनों लैंग्वेजेस में इक्वली एक्सप्लेन कर सकूं. आप मुझे बता दो क्या एग्जैक्टली नहीं समझ में आया है. ठीक है, तो मैं आपको हिंदी में भी समझा सकती हूँ. आई कैन स्पीक हिंदी वेरी वेल, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. मुझे बहुत अच्छे से हिंदी भी आती है. ठीक है, आप मुझे बता दो क्या नहीं समझ आया है, मैं आपको हिंदी में भी समझा दूंगी. ठीक है. So we were talking about the testis. ठीक है, each testis has about 250 compartments जिसे हम क्या बोलते हैं, testicular lobules बोलते हैं. Okay? Now each lobule contains 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubules in which the sperms are produced. ठीक है, यहाँ पे अगर आप देखते हैं, अगर ये आपकी टेस्टिस है, ठीक है, दिस इज योर टेस्टिस. टेस्टिस में आपके क्या प्रेजेंट है, 250 टेस्टिकुलर लोब्यूल्स प्रेजेंट है. ठीक है, ये आपके टेस्टिकुलर लोब्यूल्स हो गए. अराउंड कितने प्रेजेंट है यहाँ पे, 250 प्रेजेंट है. ठीक है, उसके बाद यहाँ पे व्हाट आर वी सीइंग दैट हर लोब्यूल में कम से कम 1 to 3 हाईली कॉइल्ड सेमिनिफेरस ट्यूब्यूल भी प्रेजेंट होते हैं, जहां पे आपके क्या प्रोड्यूस होते हैं, जहां पे स्पर्म्स आर प्रोड्यूस्ड. ठीक है. Now, if you see these seminiferous tubules, so they are lined on its inside by two types of cells which are known as male germ cells या फिर spermatogonia. And there we also have the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells are majorly responsible for nourishment of the sperm. ठीक है, Sertoli cells are majorly responsible for the nourishment of the sperm. ठीक है. If I see the testicular lobules, यहाँ पे आपकी क्या प्रेजेंट है, सेमिनिफेरस ट्यूब्यूल्स प्रेजेंट है. सेमिनिफेरस ट्यूब्यूल्स जब साथ में मिलके एक स्ट्रक्चर बना देती हैं which is known as रेटिटेस्टिस. ठीक है, ये रेटिटेस्टिस जो है ये आपकी जाती है पहले वासा इफ्रेंशिया में. वासा इफ्रेंशिया से दिस गोज टू एपिडाइडमिस. एपिडाइडमिस से इट गोज टू वास डिफरेंस एंड फ्रॉम देयर हियर इट अटैचेस टू अ ग्लैंड which is the seminal vesicle. Okay, it attaches to the gland which is your seminal vesicle. उसके बाद हमारे पास ये दो glands present है यहाँ पे which is prostate. तो ये कैसी glands हो गई हमारी, ये हो गई pair glands. ठीक है, prostate is one, bulbourethral and seminal vesicle will be paired. Okay, यहाँ पे आपको एक P shape, बहुत ही छोटे से P shaped की glands दिखेंगी which is your bulbourethral gland. bulbourethral gland का major function क्या होता है, lubrication. The major function of the bulbourethral gland is lubrication. और इसकी एक आपकी जो इसकी common opening होती है and that common opening is in urethra. Okay, and urethra से it comes to आपका penis. Penis which is your copulatory organ. Penis is the organ जिसकी वजह से copulation होता है, या फिर you can say the sperm is able to reach the female body because penis is the organ जो कि semen को release करता है in the female body. ठीक है. Now if I talk about foreskin, so penis के बाहर there is a loose skin. ठीक है, that you can actually what you can say, it's actually a tissue kind of a structure, the skin present outside the penis which is basically known as foreskin. Okay, it is known as foreskin. ठीक है. All right, other than that we have Leydig cells in the male reproductive system जो कि क्या करते हैं, they actually synthesize and secrete the testicular hormones which are known as androgens. Okay, now are you sorted? We talked about androgens. That is why I was saying that keep patience and we'll cover each and everything that is present, and whatever it is given in the NCERT book we are going to cover each and everything, so don't worry about it. All right, so we had the Leydig cells and the main function of the Leydig cells would be synthesis and secretion of the hormones which are known as the androgens. Okay, now if I talk about the sex accessory ducts, it includes retetestis, I told you how come the retitestes are formed. When you take the seminiferous tubules and they are, coming together and then they are forming a broader structure, the seminiferous tubules, that structure would be known as retitestes. Okay. After retitestes, we have vasa efferentia. Vasa efferentia, that goes to epididymis and then it goes to vas deferens. Okay. Now, if I talk about urethra, we know that urethra originates from the urinary bladder and extends through the penis to its external opening, which is known as urethral meatus. If I talk about the penis over here, it will have a small opening here, and this opening is known as your meatus. Okay, meatus, urethral meatus. So here what do we understand is that in the male reproductive system, if I talk about the urethra, it is coming from the urinary bladder that we know, but urethra is also going to the penis. So we have the common gland here for the urine as well as for the semen. Okay, but when obviously it will not happen together because the sperms will die because of the pH of the urine, right? But the path, if I talk about the path, it is common for urine as well as the semen where the sperms are present. Okay. Okay. Hanji. So that was all about the male reproductive system. Now we come to the more complicated structure, that is the female reproductive system. When I talk about the female reproductive system, it is a much more complicated structure as compared to the male one. Okay, and that we'll see now. Okay, now let's start with the female reproductive system. So here you have the diagrammatic representation of the female reproductive system. It consists of a pair of ovaries, just like the testis. Here, ovaries are responsible for the formation of ovum as well as the hormones, also the hormones. दो hormones हैं which are really important in female body. The hormones are progesterone and estrogen. Okay, progesterone and estrogen. ठीक. Then we have the oviducts. Oviducts, which are also known as the fallopian tube. Oviducts, which are also known as the fallopian tube. It basically has three parts. Okay, it has isthmus, it has ampulla, where basically the fertilization takes place. Okay, then we have the uterus. Okay, where the implantation in the wall of uterus takes place and the nourishment of the embryo, or we can say, the development of the embryo takes place in uterus itself. Okay, then we have the cervix, which is basically the opening of the copulatory organ, which is the vagina, and then we have the external genitalia along with mammary glands. Okay. Hanji. Now, here we have the uterus, right? In the wall of the uterus, what happens? Implantation happens and the development of the embryo happens inside the uterus. Urinary bladder is there. Here the opening is not same. Okay, and here we have different pathway unlike the male reproductive system. Okay. Now, here if you see, this is your external genitalia thing. Okay. Clitoris is the opening, or we can say how there is foreskin for penis, clitoris is for vagina. Okay. The same way foreskin is for the penis, clitoris is for the vagina, which is a very delicate part. Okay. Now we have labia majora and labia minora. It is basically the adipose tissue layer where the pubic hair is also present. Okay. The outer one is known as the majora, the inner one is known as minora. Okay. Then we have the vaginal orifice, which is basically the canal-like opening that actually goes to the cervix over here. And then that opening leads to vagina. Okay, that opening leads to vagina over here. All right. हाँ जी, सबसे पहले let's talk about ovaries. Ovaries are the primary female sex organ. So the primary sex organ, the major function of the primary sex organ is always to produce the gamete and as well as to secrete the sex hormones. Okay, that produces the male gamete, which is the ovum, and several steroid hormones which are known as the ovarian hormones. All right, then we talk about the oviducts, which are also known as the fallopian tube, uterus and vagina. They constitute the female accessory ducts. Now let us understand from this particular diagram. Okay, when I talk about the uterus, it has three linings: endometrium, inner one; myometrium, the center one; and the outermost would be perimetrium. ठीक है? Endometrium, myometrium and perimetrium. The cavity that you can see inside the uterus is the uterine cavity. Now it has, if you see, this is your ovary, ovary 1, ovary 2. Ovary के side में we have this finger-like structure which is your fimbriae. Okay, it's known as the fimbriae. All right, and this particular structure where the fimbriae are present, that is infundibulum, ampulla here, and then it has isthmus. Now I have a question for all of you. You have to tell me infundibulum, ampulla and isthmus, in तीनों में से what will be the site of fertilization? Fertilization exactly कहाँ होगा? ओविडक्ट के इन तीनों regions में से fertilization कहाँ होगा? infundibulum में होगा, ampulla में होगा या isthmus में होगा? Where will the fertilization take place? Come on, tell me the answer. All right. V, Singh and Unknown have given the answer ampulla, which is the correct answer. So the fertilization will take place in ampulla. So ampulla will be considered as site of fertilization. Site of fertilization. Right. Okay. तो ये आपके fallopian tube के part होते हैं, ये तीनों, which is infundibulum, ampulla and isthmus. All right, this is the vagina. From here the sperm travels and from here, you know, it enters, right? और यहाँ पे finger like projection का काम क्या होता है? This fimbriae का, to collect the ovum, to collect the ovum which is released by the ovary. ठीक है? Clear? Right. Now, if I talk about the part closer to the ovary, is the funnel-shaped infundibulum. We know the edges of the infundibulum, finger-like projections है वो, जिसे हम क्या कहते हैं? Fimbriae कहते हैं. और वो क्या करते हैं? They help in the collection of the ovum after ovulation. Okay. And now, if I talk about the last part of the oviduct, which was isthmus, has a narrow lumen and it joins the uterus. Here, you can see isthmus, it is having a narrow lumen and it joins the uterus. Right? Clear? Is this clear? Fimbriae is, okay, if I talk about fimbriae, yes, of course, it will be considered a part of the fallopian tube. But it is like a finger-like projection, but still it will be considered the part of fallopian tube. Yes, it will. All right. Other than that, now if I talk about the uterus, it opens into the vagina through a narrow cervix. Here you can see, okay, this is the uterus. Through the cervix, it is opening into the vagina. The cavity of the cervix, this cavity over here, it's known as cervical canal, okay? It's known as cervical canal. The wall of the uterus has three layers of tissue. The outer one is the perimetrium, the middle one is the myometrium, and the inner one is the endometrium. All right. Now, if I talk about the female external genitalia, I just now explained you. Mons pubis, where the adipose tissue are present. Adipose tissue and the pubic hair. Okay. The adipose fatty tissue and the pubic hair are present. This is your mons pubis. Then we have the outer layer of labia majora, inner one labia minora. Then the entry, okay, if you tell me that there is the lining, a thin lining of the opening of the vagina, that is known as hymen, okay? And then as I told you, the foreskin for penis, we have clitoris for vagina. If I talk about hymen, so the breakage of the hymen does not, does not tell us that whether the female is virgin or not, because hymen can break in any situation. If there is certain accident, certain jerk happens, if certain physical activities are there, horse riding is there, cycling is there, so the hymen can break anytime. It's not necessary that during the sexual intercourse only the hymen will be broke, okay? So hymen can break anytime, and that is why the breakage of the hymen is not considered as a justification or as a result of the virginity of the female, right? Okay, moving ahead. Now we'll be talking about the mammary glands. We know what is the function of the mammary gland? Production of milk, right? Mammary glands are paired structures, basically the breast of female, that contain glandular tissue and variable amount of fat, okay? The glandular tissue of each breast it is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes, okay? See, this is the rib, the muscles between the ribs, and the muscles which are present behind our breast is known as the pectoralis major muscle, okay? We have a lot of fat tissues in the breast, okay? There is mammary lobe. There are about 15 to 20 mammary lobes present. From the mammary lobe, it goes to the milk which is being formed. It goes to mammary alveolus, then the mammary duct, then we have the ampulla, then the lactiferous duct. Just before when the baby sucks the milk out of the nipple, the milk is present in the lactiferous duct, okay? And if there is one mammary lobe, there will be one lactiferous duct. It means if there are 15 to 20 mammary lobes, there is going to be 15 to 20 lactiferous duct, okay? So, just before the baby, when the baby sucks the milk out of the nipple, the milk is present in the lactiferous duct. Basically, this is your sequence. And areola is the dark skin tissue which is present around the nipples, okay? The dark color skin tissue which is present around the nipples, that area is known as areola, alright? So here if you see about the alveoli opens into the mammary tubules. The tubules of each lobe join to form a mammary duct, okay? So if there are 15 to 20 mammary lobes, there will be 15 to 20 lactiferous duct. Is it clear? Is this clear? Alright. Now, though we have already seen it, but let's just go through it once again. If I talk about gametogenesis, it's the process of division of diploid cells to produce new haploid cells. Why haploid cells? Because we are talking about the germ cells over here. The male and female gamete are haploid cells, and the haploid cells are formed from the diploid cells, okay? So which division takes place here? The division that takes place in the formation of the germ cell is going to be meiotic division, because here reductional division is taking place. Alright, now if I talk about the processes, we have two different types of processes, spermatogenesis and oogenesis, that we have seen just now. Here this diagram you can see, this is a diagram from NCERT itself. Okay, here we have the spermatogonium, right? After that, first mitotic division takes place. We get the primary spermatocyte. From the primary spermatocyte, first meiotic division takes place, right? We get secondary spermatocyte, means haploid. But the primary one was diploid. Why? Because from spermatogonium, mitotic division takes place, right? From here, the second meiotic division takes place, right? It means N, haploid. And from here, if we have 4 spermatids, so we will have 4 spermatozoa itself, right? And these are the cells which are the Sertoli cells present in between. Clear? This was spermatogenesis, and oogenesis also we have seen already. This is the same diagram. Do you want me to explain this again? Let me know. Do you want me to explain this particular comparison again, or have everyone understood? We have just now done it. That's why I'm asking. Do you want me to explain it one more time? Let me know. Alright, so if everyone has understood this, let me ask you some questions as a comparative study of spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Okay, tell me, okay, when does the second meiotic division takes place in female? When will the second meiotic division take place in female? After fertilization, before fertilization? After the entry of the sperm, before the entry of the sperm? When will the second meiotic division take place in the female body? Anyone wants to answer? The second meiotic division will take place in the female body after the sperm enters, because as soon as the sperm enters and it meets the secondary oocyte, that is how the ovum is formed, right? So the second meiotic division will take place after the entry of the sperm but before fertilization. Got it? Not after fertilization, before fertilization. It will happen after the entry of the sperm. As soon as the sperm meets the secondary oocyte, then it will form into an ovum. So it will happen after the entry of the sperm but before fertilization. Okay, but before fertilization. The fusion does not happen. As soon as the sperm enters, it becomes ovum and the second meiotic division takes place. Okay. So this we have done already. Let's talk about the structure of the sperm. The sperm, we know it's a microscopic structure. We cannot see it from a naked eye, with a naked eye. It's composed of, we have head, neck, middle piece and tail. As you can see, this is the head of the sperm. This small portion over here, this much, is the neck. This is the middle piece, okay, and that is the tail. So the sperm head, basically it contains an elongated haploid nucleus. Okay, it has the nucleus, right? The anterior portion of which is covered with a cap-like structure that is known as acrosome. Acrosome consists of certain enzymes which helps the sperm to enter the ovum, because ovum is covered, or you can say it's protected by a layer which is known as zona pellucida. Okay, so acrosome contains certain enzymes which basically helps the sperm to enter the ovum. All right. Okay. Right. Other than that, you can also see that the middle piece consists of mitochondria. Why? It provides energy for the sperm for swimming, or you can say for the motility. Okay. And the tail is of course used for as the motile organ, because the tail helps the sperm to reach the ovum. So tail is the motile organ. Okay, that was the structure of the sperm. Now let's talk about the structure of ovary. Ovary, we know these are a flat oval structure that measures approximately 4 cm in the length, 1 cm in thickness and 2 cm in breadth. Females have 2 ovaries, we know. Now see, first formation is primary follicle, where you can see this nucleus, right? So here, if this is the ovum and this is the nucleus, this is primary follicle. Then comes secondary follicle. Secondary follicle, there will be extra layer of theca. In the secondary follicle, there will be an extra layer of theca. Okay, that is why it is known as secondary follicle. Got it? Now, one more thing. Both of this will have primary oocyte. These are primary oocyte only. Okay. Now the third one becomes tertiary follicle. It has internal theca and external theca. It also has this cavity which is known as antrum. This is the cavity which is present in the tertiary follicle, which is antrum, and tertiary follicle basically consists of secondary oocyte, because after the tertiary follicle, you know, becomes a Graafian follicle, and on the day of ovulation, from the Graafian follicle releases ovum. So in the diagram it's written ovum, but technically this is secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte releases. Okay, but in the NCERT it's mentioned ovum, so it's fine, but technically it is the secondary oocyte because it becomes ovum as soon as the sperm meets the secondary oocyte. Okay. Hanji, after once, you know, the secondary oocyte is released, there are remainings, you know, there are like remains of that particular body, and that body is known as corpus luteum, which is the yellow body. Nutritious body. Okay. Clear? This was the structure of the ovary. Right. Now, moving ahead, let's talk about the menstrual cycle. What is the menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle is the reproductive cycle in the female primates. Okay. Menstrual cycle is basically the reproductive cycle that takes place in primates. What will be the example of primates? Apes, humans, monkeys, etc. Okay. So ये आपकी reproductive cycle है that basically takes place in the primates. Now if I talk about non-primates, so the cycle which takes place in non-primates is the estrus cycle. Okay. Now, but we have to focus on the menstrual cycle. So the first menstruation begins at the puberty and it's known as menarche. Okay. The first menstruation begins at the puberty and known as menarche. Now see. Okay, let us come to the diagram later. Let me explain you first. Menstrual cycle, right? It begins, okay, let me write it here. Beginning is known as menarche, okay, and ending is known as menopause, which means if menarche is happening around 12 to 13 years of age, this happens around 50 to 55 years of age. So the reproductive life of a female will be there only from the time period of menarche and menopause. Before menarche, the female is, the reproductive life did not start. After menopause, there is no reproductive life. Unlike males, okay, males can reproduce for a longer period of time, but females cannot reproduce after the menopause. Okay. Okay, there's one question, but I did not really understand the question. The egg, singular sperm, female, male gamete or sperm, and the female gamete. The egg or ovum fuse the sperm. I did not really understand. Can you just clearly write the question so that I can answer? Alright, we were at menstrual cycle. हाँ जी, begin कब होता है? मेनार्क पे begin होता है. End कब हो रहा है? Menopause पे हो रहा है. Let's consider an ideal case. Ideal case would be of 28 days. ठीक है? Day 1, day 14 and day 28. Now, दो जगह events होते हैं आपके menstrual cycle के. ठीक है? एक होता है uterus में. Certain events are happening in the uterus, and there are different events which are happening in the ovary. Now, from the first to the fifth day, from the first to the fifth day, आपकी जो endometrium की lining है, the lining of the endometrium is shedding. Alright, that is why यहाँ पे bleeding होती है. Shedding हो रही है endometrium की line की and bleeding हो रही है. That is why this phase is known as menstrual or the bleeding phase. Right? Now, you will ask me कि अगर यहाँ पे ये हो रहा है, then what is happening in the ovary? Ovary में just now we were seeing about the primary follicle. Primary follicle बन रहा है, उसके बाद secondary follicle बन रहा है, which has the theca layer, right? Then becomes the tertiary follicle, which has internal theca, external theca, and also the cavity, which is antrum. Then becomes the Graafian follicle. Okay? Then becomes the Graafian follicle. Right? Now, if you ask me that how are the follicles being made? These follicles are being made with the help of an hormone which is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. And this hormone is released by anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary से ये hormone कब release होते हैं? When the gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH, you know, it basically signals anterior pituitary in order to release FSH. And because here the follicles are being made, that is why this phase, from 5th to around 13th day, this phase is known as follicular phase. Follicular phase. Now that is happening in the ovary. In the uterus, what else is happening? From 1st to 5th day, the menstrual thing is happening. Endometrium lining is getting shedded. Again, from here, the lining starts getting made. Okay? This is because of the hormone estrogen. Estrogen is the hormone which is released by the ovary. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? Lining का proliferation हो रहा है. That is why the follicular phase is also known as proliferative phase. Now, just before the 14th day, on around 13th day, there is another hormone which is that surge, that is LH. LH is luteinizing hormone which is also secreted by the anterior pituitary. And because just before the 14th day it is on surge, that is why here the Graafian follicle releases secondary oocyte. And as soon as the secondary oocyte gets released, the 14th day is considered as ovulation. It's considered as ovulation, the day of ovulation. Okay? After this, what happens? As soon as the secondary oocyte is released, the remaining body makes a different yellow color body, and this body is known as corpus luteum. Corpus luteum. And that is why here this phase is known as luteal phase. Luteal phase. And this corpus luteum, it actually secretes two different hormones, progesterone plus estrogen. So here also the peak would be high of progesterone and as well as the estrogen. And that is why, because they are secreting, this phase is also known as secretory phase. Okay, it's also known as the secretory phase. So here it's releasing progesterone and estrogen, but after that there will be a dip in progesterone and estrogen, because of which again the endometrium lining will be shed, and that is why the cycle will begin again. Okay, so that is how the menstrual cycle takes place. Now we'll just understand from this diagram. See, what I told you, फर्स्ट डे से लेके ऑलमोस्ट 5th डे तक आपका क्या है, ब्लीडिंग फेज है, मेंस्ट्रुअल फेज है. व्हाई? क्योंकि एंडोमेट्रियम की लाइनिंग क्या हो रही है, शेड हो रही है, राइट. सो व्हेन द एंडोमेट्रियम लाइनिंग शेड हो रही है, उसके बाद वापस से लाइनिंग बननी शुरू हो गई. सो एस्ट्रोजन का लेवल हाई. ओवरी में क्या हो रहा है, फॉलिकुलर डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है. फॉलिकुलर डेवलपमेंट किसकी वजह से होता है, एफएसएच की वजह से, फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन दैट इज रिलीज्ड बाय द एंटीरियर पिट्यूटरी, राइट. नाउ ओव्यूलेशन के जस्ट पहले ऑलमोस्ट 13th डे पे एलएच क्या है, सर्च पे है. LH is luteinizing hormone again released by the anterior pituitary. Got it? So that is why on the day of ovulation, which is the 14th day approx, ovulation होता है जहां पे क्या रिलीज हो रहा है, आपका सेकेंडरी oocyte रिलीज हो रहा है. ओके, सेकेंडरी oocyte रिलीज हुआ, राइट. यहाँ पे आपकी लाइनिंग वापस से बननी चालू हो गई आफ्टर इट गॉट शेड, राइट. इतनी थिक लाइनिंग बननी चालू हो गई है. सो एक बार सेकेंडरी oocyte रिलीज हो गया, आफ्टर दैट the remaining body, the remaining yellow color body, it forms corpus luteum. Okay, corpus luteum secretes progesterone as well as estrogen. Okay, यहाँ पे progesterone is super high and progesterone and estrogen, but यहाँ पे the estrogen which is released, it actually sends the negative feedback to LH. If luteinizing hormone is not there, corpus luteum will not be there. If corpus luteum is not there, then the प्रोजेस्टेरॉन एंड एस्ट्रोजन विल बी नॉट देयर. दैट मींस उनका भी ग्राफ क्या आ जाएगा, नीचे आ जाएगा. अगर प्रोजेस्टेरॉन और एस्ट्रोजन का ग्राफ नीचे आ गया तो एंडोमेट्रियम की लाइनिंग वापस से टूटने लग जाएगी एंड देन अगेन द ब्लीडिंग फेज विल स्टार्ट. ठीक है, सो दैट वाज अबाउट मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल. एनी डाउट्स? Any doubts in the menstrual cycle? Or is it clear? चलिए. Now we have come to another process. We are done with menstrual cycle. It is the fertilization. What happens? The process of fusion of a sperm with an ovum is called fertilization, right? ये ओवम है. ओवम की आउटर लेयर कौन सी है, जोना पेलिसिडा. यहाँ पे एक रिसेप्टर होता है आपका, ZP3 is the receptor. Okay, as soon as one sperm enters the zona pellucida layer, ठीक है, it has certain enzymes such as acrosin. ठीक है, ये क्या करता है, आके जोना पेलिसिडा की लेयर में it can penetrate, and as soon as one sperm enters the ovum, the zona pellucida की लेयर में the receptor is not there. That is why other sperms which are trying to enter, it cannot enter, right? So that is how the fusion of the sperm and ovum takes place. As soon as the sperm reaches the ovum, it penetrates the zona pellucida with certain enzymes which are present in the acrosome of the sperm such as acrosin, right? And as soon as it fuses with the ovum, it does not allow any other sperm to enter the ovum, right? So that is how the fusion takes place. Hanji. Now we will be talking about implantation. Okay. So we know what is implantation. The embryo develops and undergoes various stages and it gets attached to the endometrial layer of the uterus. So when the implant, जब आपका embryo implant कर रहा है on the uterine wall, okay, when it's getting attached to the wall of the uterus, that particular process is known as implantation, right? The process of attachment basically is implantation. So what we know is, this is your ovum. As soon as the sperm enters the ovum, आपका ये क्या बन गया, zygote बन गया, right? Zygote के cells ने क्या किया, divide करना चालू किया. It forms a morula. Morula के बाद it becomes the blastula, and then it becomes a blastula, and then it becomes a blastocyst because it contains this cavity as well. So when that blastula or blastocyst, it attaches here, okay, so it attaches to the uterine wall. Uterus is also known as hystera. When it attaches to the uterus wall, that is known as blastocyst implantation. Okay, So it has to come and attach here only on the wall of uterus. If it attaches anywhere else, suppose it's attaching here or it's here, that condition is known as ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancy. It's not normal pregnancy, but it's ectopic pregnancy. So what happens is when the attachment of the blastocyst, it takes place in the fallopian tube or any other part of the oviduct, but not the wall of the uterus. It's not normal pregnancy, it's ectopic pregnancy. And you know, when you are doing ultrasound, you can know that it's not normal pregnancy, and उस टाइम पे वो उस प्रेगनेंसी को खत्म कर देते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि अगर यूट्रस अगर फेलोपियन ट्यूब में सपोज अटैचमेंट हो गया ब्लास्टोसिस्ट का, एंड एज सुन एज वो ग्रो करेगा तो फेलोपियन ट्यूब क्या होगी, वो तो फट जाएगी या फिर वो टूट जाएगी, जिसकी वजह से देयर कैन बी हार्मफुल इफेक्ट्स ऑन द बॉडी ऑफ द फीमेल. दैट इज व्हाई वेदर you know in any case of ectopic pregnancy it's not considered normal, and उसे बिल्कुल भी consider नहीं किया जाता until and unless the case is of normal pregnancy. ठीक है? So that is implantation. Okay, here you can see जब आपका fertilization होता है, जैसे ही fertilization हुआ, suppose day 1 पे fertilization हुआ, okay, day 2 पे first cleavage होगा, then आपका इस तरह के से cleavage होगा, this is your day 3 to 4, okay, then you will have 8 cell structure, that is morula, right, around day 4 पे आपका. Day 5 पे there will be early blastocyst, day 6 to 7 में late stage blastocyst, and then finally towards day 8 or 9 implantation of the blastocyst happens. Basically from here the actual pregnancy starts. So even after the fertilization, if day 1 is of fertilization, after the fertilization, after 8 to 9 days of fertilization, the pregnancy will start, because the pregnancy starts only when the blastocyst comes and it attaches to the wall of the uterine. All right, so it comes and attaches to the wall of the uterine, only then the pregnancy starts. So after the day of fertilization, so you have to wait like 8 to 9 days after fertilization, and then only, you know, when you go for pregnancy test or the test kits which comes usually, that will happen after 8 to 9 days, right? Okay, now let's talk about pregnancy and embryonic development. The chorionic villi and the uterine tissue become interdigitated with each other, and they jointly form a structural and functional unit between developing embryo and the maternal body known as placenta. So placenta is basically a wall between the mother and the baby, and it does not allow mixing of the blood of mother and the baby. Alright, placenta also acts as endocrine tissue, and it produces several hormones like human chorionic gonadotropin, human placental lactogen, estrogens, progesterones, etc. So here you can see, this is your placental villi, this is the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is basically connected with the placenta, and here is the mother tissue, okay, here is the mother, the cells of the mother. Alright, so this is the wall, the placental wall between mother and the fetus. So the placenta does not allow mixing of the blood between the mother and the fetus, and whatever things has to be transferred, it will happen through placenta and then through the umbilical cord. Okay, so that's what happens in the pregnancy. Okay, so here you can see clearly this diagrammatic representation. Just now we saw secondary oocyte, then fertilization happens, right? Zygote forms, zygote metaphase, there are certain cell stages, then it becomes morula over here, then it becomes blastula, okay? From that, day 4 mein when it's morula, after that, it becomes the early blastocyst till 5th to 6th day. After that, there will be complete blastocyst, and the implantation takes place like around 8th to 9th day, right? And when the implantation takes place, and then the development of the embryo, it starts inside the uterus. This is the embryo, this is your umbilical cord, this is your placental villi, and this is your blood vessels of the mother, right? All right. So now if I talk about parturition, which is basically childbirth. So vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of the pregnancy causes expulsion or delivery of the fetus, and delivery of the fetus is basically the process known as parturition. Okay, what are the signals of the parturition? It actually originates from fully developed fetus and the placenta. So when the fetus is fully developed, then the fetus and the placenta, it provides signals that now is the time of the pregnancy, okay, which basically induce mild uterine contractions, which are known as fetal ejection reflex. Okay, so that is how the parturition takes place. Okay, last thing, which is lactation. So lactation, we have studied in detail about the mammary glands just now, right? So what happens in lactation? There are mammary glands which are present of the female that undergoes differentiation during the pregnancy, and then it starts producing the milk, okay? And the first milk that is given to the baby, the yellow color milk, which is highly nutritious, it's known as colostrum, okay, yellow milk. And it's very, very important for the baby because it consists of the antibodies IgA. It makes the baby immune because it consists of antibodies IgA. Okay, so that is why milk of the mother is really important for the child. Got it? All right. So that is how we are done with all the processes of the human reproduction, starting from gametogenesis till lactation. We have covered almost all the processes in detail. And now we'll be doing the last chapter of the unit, that is reproductive health. When I talk about reproductive health chapter, it is not just a part of the syllabus, but it's a very awakening chapter, and we can aware a lot of people from this chapter. This chapter is really, really important, and it's really, really good. So yeah, let's get started now with the third chapter and the last chapter of the unit. Right. So let's get started with the third chapter and the last chapter of the unit. Also, guys, if you find this session helpful, then do like the session. Also, I've been telling you guys again and again, there is a link of the form mentioned in the description. Please जाके उस link को open करके उस form को ज़रूर fill कीजिए, ठीक है? That form will be really, really helpful, and it will be very beneficial for you. Okay? So don't forget to fill the form. Do share the session and do like the session if you find this helpful. All right? चलो, let's get started from the reproductive health. Definition क्या हो जाएगी भाई reproductive health की यहाँ पे? Reproductive health refers to the overall well-being of individuals in all aspects, including physical, emotional, behavioral and social aspects. It's not just that कि आप physically fit हो, but अगर आप physically fit हो, mentally fit हो, emotionally fit हो, and सारे social aspects में your behavior is normal, your social well-being is normal, each and everything is considered, that is when we can call a person completely healthy, और हम ये उसके overall well-being की बात करते हैं, ठीक है? चलो, first topic of the chapter is amniocentesis. Amniocentesis क्या होता है? This is basically a medical procedure used during pregnancy to collect and analyze a sample of amniotic fluid surrounding the fetus. So basically here you can see, ये fetus है. Fetus ना एक structure में present होता है. This structure is known as amnion. ठीक है? तो अब amnion और fetus के बीच में there is a fluid. ठीक है? Fluid क्यों होता है वहाँ पे? ताकि बहुत ज़्यादा friction ना हो. Friction की वजह से the fetus cannot be harmed, या फिर mother को भी कोई harm ना हो. That is why we always keep a fluid. Okay, there is a fluid present between the amnion and the baby, and that fluid उसे हम बोलते हैं amniotic fluid. So during pregnancy ये amniotic fluid क्या करते हैं? Collect किया जाता है. इस amniotic fluid को जब आपने collect कर दिया, तो यहाँ से आप analyze कर सकते हो whether everything is normal with the baby. दो फीटस की कंडीशन है वो सब नॉर्मल है या नहीं, फीटस का जो डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है वो नॉर्मल है कि नहीं, ठीक है? बट people started misusing this process to know the sex of the baby. ये जो process है, क्योंकि आपने amniotic fluid निकाल लिया तो of course आपको पता चल जाएगा whether the baby is a boy or a girl, right? तो इस वजह से लोगों ने इस process का misuse करना चालू कर दिया for the sex determination, क्योंकि जैसे ही उन्हें पता चलता था that the fetus is a female, तो female feticide हो जाता था, ठीक है, या फिर वो उसे मार देते थे, abortion करा देते थे, ठीक है, जिसकी वजह से this process for sex determination is banned in India now. ठीक है, पर्पस बेसिकली क्या था? पर्पस ये था टू डायग्नोज जेनेटिक डिसऑर्डर्स, assess fetal health and determine certain characteristics of fetus कि सब कुछ नॉर्मल है या नहीं. बट ऑफ कोर्स जो एक्चुअल पर्पस था वो किसी ने फुलफिल किया नहीं, बट लोगों ने इसका मिसयूज किया टू नो द सेक्स ऑफ द चाइल्ड, ठीक है, एंड दैट इज व्हाई नाउ दिस प्रोसेस इज बैन इन इंडिया, राइट? सो दैट वाज अबाउट एमनियोसेंटेसिस. मूविंग अहेड, कैसे करते थे? मदर का एब्डोमेन सबसे पहले क्लीन किया जाता है, ठीक है, देन अल्ट्रासाउंड इमेजिंग इज यूज्ड इन ऑर्डर टू आइडेंटिफाई द पोजीशन ऑफ द फीटस एंड द प्लेसेंटा. तो जैसे हमें फीटस की पोजीशन और प्लेसेंटा की पोजीशन के बारे में पता चल जाता है, तब हम एक नीडल इंसर्ट करते हैं इनसाइड द एमनियन थ्रू द मदर्स एब्डोमेन, ठीक है, एंड देन हम क्या करते हैं? फ्लूइड कलेक्शन करते हैं, बिकॉज हमें क्या चाहिए? हमें एमनियोटिक फ्लूइड चाहिए. सो अ स्मॉल अमाउंट ऑफ एमनियोटिक फ्लूइड फिर हम केयरफुली विड्रॉ कर लेते हैं एंड हम कलेक्ट करते हैं उसको एनालिसिस के लिए. और उस एनालिसिस में हमें सब कुछ पता चल सकता है कि अगर फीटस को कोई जेनेटिक डिसऑर्डर है, फीटस का डेवलपमेंट नॉर्मल हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है, यू नो, एनी काइंड ऑफ डिसऑर्डर वी कैन नो अबाउट इट, एंड वी कैन ऑल्सो नो द सेक्स ऑफ द बेबी जिसका मिसयूज किया गया, राइट? सो दैट वाज अबाउट amniocentesis. Now let's talk about population stabilization and the birth. सबसे पहले तो हम ग्रोथ की बात करते हैं. तो इंडिया फेसेस चैलेंजेस ड्यू टू रैपिड पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ which strains resources and affects reproductive health. So we all know that India faces a lot of challenges because of rapid population growth. So there are a lot of things, okay? हमारे पास resources की कमी हो जाती है, there is a lot of unemployment, reproductive health बहुत ज़्यादा poor है because of the rapid population growth, and that is why government of India, you know, came up with a lot of schemes. बहुत सारे slogans चलाए गए in order to promote birth control. For example, बच्चे दो ही अच्छे, छोटा परिवार सुखी परिवार, इस तरह के slogans लाए गए in order to promote कि हमें birth control करने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि रैपिड पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ ना हो. क्योंकि रैपिड पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ की वजह से क्या हो रहा था? रिप्रोडक्टिव हेल्थ आपकी बहुत ज्यादा पुअर हो रखी थी एंड बहुत ज्यादा हमें रिसोर्सेज के साथ जो है हमें डील करना पड़ रहा था, बहुत कम रिसोर्सेज के चक्कर में. इम्पैक्ट क्या होता है? ओवर पॉपुलेशन, इट लीड्स टू सोशियो इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज, एनवायरमेंटल डिग्रेडेशन होता है और हेल्थ केयर बर्डन भी बढ़ जाता है. ऑफ कोर्स जितने ज़्यादा लोग रहेंगे वो उतने ज़्यादा रिसोर्सेज यूज़ करेंगे. अगर जितने ज़्यादा हम रिसोर्सेज यूज़ करते जाएंगे, अगर उनकी कमी होती जाएगी तो एनवायरमेंट डिग्रेडेशन होता रहेगा, राइट? एनवायरमेंटल डिग्रेडेशन के साथ साथ सोशियो इकोनॉमिक बैलेंस हमारी लाइफ का बिगड़ जाता है और रिप्रोडक्टिव हेल्थ तो एनीवे सफ़र कर ही रही है, राइट? अब हम देखते हैं व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ रिप्रोडक्टिव हेल्थ, ठीक है? Effective reproductive health programs, they basically help address the population explosion by promoting family planning and contraception. So इतनी ज़्यादा rapid population growth हो रही थी, इसी की वजह से family planning और contraceptive methods को introduce किया गया so that we can actually promote birth control, ठीक है, जो हम अभी one by one देखते हैं. हाँ जी, so सबसे पहले तो हम बात करते हैं रेगुलेशन ऑफ पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ की. सो बर्थ कंट्रोल की अगर हम बात करें, सो बर्थ कंट्रोल मेजर्स आर इसेंशियल फॉर रेगुलेटिंग पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ एंड अचीविंग सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट, ठीक है? बेनिफिट्स क्या क्या होंगे? जो बर्थ कंट्रोल है वो सिर्फ ये बात नहीं है कि पॉपुलेशन को कंट्रोल करता है, पॉपुलेशन तो कंट्रोल होगी ही होगी बर्थ कंट्रोल से, उसके साथ साथ ये प्रमोट करता है रिप्रोडक्टिव हेल्थ को, reduces maternal and infant mortality rates, and it also empowers individuals to make informed choices. अब maternal and infant mortality rate का मतलब क्या हुआ? पहले ज़माने में हर कोई डिलीवरी के टाइम पे डॉक्टर्स के पास नहीं जाते थे. एक तो फैमिली प्लानिंग का कोई कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं था, ठीक है? दैट इज वाई ये भी नहीं पता था कि फर्स्ट चाइल्ड और सेकेंड चाइल्ड के बीच में एक स्पेसिफिक ईयर का गैप होना चाहिए, जिसकी वजह से बेबी की भी हेल्थ अच्छी रहे और मदर की भी हेल्थ अच्छी रहे. ये कोई कॉन्सेप्ट था नहीं पहले के टाइम पे, राइट? सो वहां पे जब डिलीवरी भी होती थी सो वो हमेशा एक ट्रेन्ड डॉक्टर के पास नहीं जाते थे डिलीवरी के लिए, बट घर में ही जो लोग थोड़ा सा एक्सपीरियंस होते थे या जिन्होंने पहले डिलीवरी कर रखी थी, दे यूज्ड टू कम एंड हमेशा सिर्फ नॉर्मल डिलीवरी करवा के वो चले जाते थे, जिसकी वजह से जो कॉम्प्लिकेशंस है वो बहुत बढ़ते जाते थे, राइट? क्योंकि व्हेन दे आर नॉट एजुकेटेड इनफ, व्हेन दे डू नॉट नो कि एग्जैक्टली डिलीवरी कैसे करनी है, डिलीवरी के बाद की क्या प्रोसेसेस होती हैं, राइट? तो कॉम्प्लिकेशंस को उन्हें कंट्रोल करना नहीं आता था, जिसकी वजह से जो बच्चे हैं वो बहुत सारे ऐसे बच्चे होते थे जो पैदा होते ही मर जाते थे, ठीक है? तो इन्फेंट मोर्टेलिटी रेट बढ़ता गया, जिसकी वजह से आफ्टर डिलीवरी बहुत सारी कॉम्प्लिकेशंस मदर की बॉडी में भी होती है। सो दैट इज वाई डिलीवरी के वक्त या तुरंत डिलीवरी के बाद बहुत सारी मदर्स की भी डेथ हो जाती थी, राइट? सो मैटरनल एंड इन्फेंट मोर्टेलिटी रेट बहुत ज्यादा हाई था। बट व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट बर्थ कंट्रोल, व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट रिप्रोडक्टिव हेल्थ, तो जो इन्फेंट और मोर्टेलिटी रेट है, इन्फेंट और मदर का मोर्टेलिटी रेट है, वो भी डिक्रीज होने लग गया, राइट? ओके, अब हम बात करते हैं कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव की। सो इंश्योरिंग एक्सेस टू अ वेराइटी ऑफ कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव प्रेफरेंसेस कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू इफेक्टिव बर्थ कंट्रोल। अभी हम सारे कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव्स के बारे में बात करेंगे। एंड यू नो कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव्स को एक्सेसिबल बनाना एंड इजी टू यूज, इजीली अवेलेबल, अफोर्डेबल, ये सारा होना जरूरी है सो दैट पीपल कैन यूज डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव्स, राइट? हाँ जी, ओके, एक गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव सारे दिए गए। The one more important government initiative was development of सहेली। सहेली एक टैबलेट है, ठीक है, जिसका बेसिकली अगर मैं केमिकल नाम बोलूं तो द केमिकल नेम ऑफ सहेली इज सेंटक्रोमैन। बहुत सारे जो ओरल कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव्स होते हैं, बहुत सारे ओरल कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव्स होते हैं ना, वो उसमें बहुत ज्यादा स्टेरॉइड्स होते हैं, हार्मोन्स होते हैं, जो जिन्हें लेने से बहुत ज्यादा कॉम्प्लिकेशंस होते हैं। एंड ऑलरेडी फीमेल जो फीमेल बॉडी है, it's already very much complicated, right? So when you take a external source of the hormones, there are high chances कि वो complications को क्या कर दे, increase कर दे, right? Complications को increase कर दे। That too, जितनी भी medicines present थी, obviously उसमें combination या तो progesterone होता था या progesterone और estrogen का combination tablets होती हैं, ठीक है? So उसके बाद क्या होता था, देयर वाज अ पैटर्न कि आपको 21 डेज ये खानी है, 7 डेज नहीं खानी, वापस से फिर शुरू करनी है। सो देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ कंफ्यूजन कमिंग। सो दैट इज व्हाई यू नो इट वाज डेवलप्ड, द गवर्नमेंट केम अप विद दिस, जो हफ्ते में एक बार खानी होती है सहेली, ठीक है? सहेली के नाम से बेसिकली बिकती है बिकॉज इजी टू रिमेंबर, बट द नेम इज सेंटक्रोमैन। ओके, इट वाज डेवलप्ड बाय the scientist at CDRI, which is Central Drug Research Institute, which is present in Lucknow, ठीक है? Saheli was a huge help when it came to oral contraceptives. Awareness about sex-related matters, increased number of medically assisted deliveries taking place, and better post-natal care after the delivery. Mother और infant दोनों को बहुत ज़्यादा care की ज़रूरत होती है because बहुत ज़्यादा complications हो सकते हैं, right? So all of these things started to change. It started to begin. Okay? हाँ जी, significance क्या हुआ? Maternal and infant mortality rate कम होने लगा, increased number of couples with small families, better detection and cure of STDs, ठीक है? sexually transmitted diseases को हमने जल्दी diagnose करना शुरू किया और उसके लिए हमारे पास काफी ज्यादा cure आने लगे, ठीक है? Overall increased medical facility for all sex related problems, right? अब हम बात करते हैं methods of birth control की, ठीक है? There are a lot of methods of birth control जिसको हमने divide किया हुआ है। पहले होते हैं natural methods, फिर आते हैं barrier methods, then we have intrauterine devices। नाम से क्लियर है, intrauterine मतलब यूट्रस के अंदर डलने वाला डिवाइस, ठीक है? Oral contraceptive just like सहेली, injectables and implants, and then comes surgical methods, ठीक है? ये सारी different methods होती है for birth control। सबसे पहले हम बात करते हैं natural methods की। Natural method में the first thing is period abstinence, periodic abstinence। periodic abstinence मतलब अभी हमने menstrual cycle पढ़ा है, okay? periodic abstinence basically means that when you keep a track of your menstrual cycle, okay? when you know कि you you already know that a female can get pregnant only during the time of ovulation, right? Now what happens if 14th day I'm considering as the day of ovulation? So I know that I have to take 13 and 15 also in consideration, because when the ovum is released in the female body, it can stay up to 1 to 1.5 days, right? Now, when I talk about the sperm, if the sperm is there in the body, in the female body, so it can survive up to 2 days. After 2 days, if it's not fertilizing with the ovum, it will die, right? So I have to take 2 days here, 2 days here. Now, what it means, from 10 to 17, I will consider fertile period. So do not have unprotected sexual intercourse during the fertile period. All right. If you are trying to avoid pregnancy and if you're trying to, like, do the birth control. So do not have unprotected sexual intercourse during the fertile period, and that is the natural method of birth control, where you don't have to wear anything. There is no barrier, there is no oral contraceptive, you just have to keep a track, right? Okay. Now, second is withdrawal method या फिर coitus interruptus. It basically means that before the ejaculation, the male partner has to pull out or has to withdraw the copulatory organ, which is the penis. So before the ejaculation, it needs, of course, it requires a lot of self-control. So what happens in withdrawal method? Before ejaculation, the male partner has to withdraw the penis out of the female body so that the ejaculation does not happen inside the female body. Ejaculation should happen outside the female body. Okay, that is also one of the type of natural method which is known as withdrawal or coitus interruptus, where you are interrupting the coitus. Okay. Then comes lactational amenorrhea method. What is lactational amenorrhea method? Basically, when you give birth to a child, okay, when you give birth to a child, at that time you are lactating, like you're feeding the child. So at that time, the progesterone hormone, at that time the progesterone hormone is at peak. When the progesterone hormone is at peak, so the endometrium lining is not shedding at that time, right? So that is why after the birth of the baby, around for 5 to 6 months, the woman does not menstruate. If the menstrual cycle is not happening, it means she is not fertile at that time. So after the birth of the baby, 5 to 6 months, when the woman is lactating and she is not menstruating, she is not considered fertile. Okay. So in that period, if you are having unprotected sexual intercourse, there are less chances of, getting pregnant. That is why it's also considered one of the natural methods of birth control. Okay? That was about natural method. Now let's come to barrier methods. Barrier method means you are putting a barrier in between, the male and female gamete. You are not allowing the male and female gametes to meet or to fuse. That is why it's known as barrier method. The most common one is condoms. Condoms are used by male partners. Okay, it's a rubber elastic structure that the male partner wears over the penis, so that when the male partner ejaculates, the semen and the sperm, it gets collected inside the condom. If it's getting collected inside the condom, so the sperm cannot meet the ovum. And the main thing over here, in order to control the birth, what we have to do, we have to stop, or we have to basically interrupt the fusion of male and female gamete, right? So condom is the most common one. Then for females, there are some female condoms as well, which are known as femidoms. Okay, femidoms are basically female condoms that they wear over the cervix and vagina. Then we have diaphragms, cervical caps and vaults for females. These are the structures which are worn over the vagina and the cervix. Same thing happens even if the ejaculation happens. So the sperm will not be able to enter the female body. Okay, if the sperm is not entering the female body, it basically means that the fusion of male and female gamete will not take place. Okay. Now, whenever people are using condoms, femidoms, diaphragms, they actually, apply spermicidal creams, jellies and foams as well. These are basically the creams which, when you apply these, okay, when you apply these creams, this spermicidal creams or the jellies, okay, so these are the creams or jellies which consist of certain chemicals if the sperm comes in contact with the creams or the jellies, the sperm will not be able to survive, it will die. Okay, so whenever people are using condoms, femidoms and diaphragms, cervical caps, they actually put these creams and jellies as well, so that it increases the chances of the birth control, okay, and it avoids the chances of pregnancy. Got it? That was the barrier method. Now coming to intrauterine devices. Intrauterine devices are basically the devices which we place inside the uterus in order to avoid the fusion, right? So copper T, copper releasing IUDs, hormone releasing IUDs, non-medicated IUDs, they basically do not allow the sperm to meet the ovum, because for example, if I talk about the copper releasing IUDs, okay, so when it releases copper, it actually kills the sperm even before the sperm reaches the fallopian tube and tries to meet the ovum. Okay, so these devices are there, and of course it's reversible till the time you want the device to be there. Otherwise you can remove the device when you are planning the pregnancy. Till the time you want to avoid the pregnancy, you can keep the device inside the uterus, and when you are planning to opt for a child, you can remove the device. Okay, then comes oral contraceptive mini pills, which has only progesterone hormone, combined oral contraceptive that has a combination of progesterone and estrogen, and then Saheli weekly pill. Okay, so basically in the oral contraceptive, what happens is that you are externally providing hormone to your body in order to manage or to fluctuate your menstrual cycle. Okay, when you're externally providing the hormone to your body, it basically fluctuates your menstrual cycle, because of which what happens is that the day of your ovulation keeps extending. Okay, so you are avoiding and you are fluctuating your menstrual cycle by taking the hormonal pills. Okay, now if I talk about injectables and implants, so there are certain progesterone, estrogen injections and implants available. You know, there's a structure like this. This is a structure that is placed inside your skin, and this structure keeps releasing hormones in smaller quantity. So everything happens with progesterone and estrogen, and most of the complication will happen in the female body, and most of the contraceptives are also for the female body. Already the female body is really complicated structure, and then if we do this external hormonal thing and stuff like that, so of course it becomes more complicated. There are a lot of fluctuations and there are a lot of complications. Okay, so and other than that, in injectables and implants, what happens is that you can directly inject hormones. Implants is basically like this structure, okay, where small quantity of the hormones will keep releasing, right? Then we come to surgical method. Surgical method, okay, no, these are the natural ones. This will not be here, okay, this will not be here, sorry. Yeah, surgical methods, but the surgical methods are the permanent methods, okay. Surgical methods are the permanent methods. There is one method which is known as vasectomy that takes place in female, okay, where we cut and tie the vas deferens in the males, okay. So if the vas deferens is only not there, it means the sperm cannot travel. The sperm, if the sperm is not able to travel, then obviously it cannot reach the female body. So there will be no fusion. Okay. Yeah. Now, in females, it's known as tubectomy. Tubectomy in females. In females, what happens? We cut the fallopian tube and tie them. If fallopian tube is not there, sperm will not be able to enter the fallopian tube and the fusion will not take place, or the fertilization will not take place. So that was the surgical methods over here, right? Now we are done with the methods of the birth control. Now we come to MTP, which is medical termination of pregnancy, or which is also known as abortion. What is abortion or medical termination of pregnancy? Intentional or voluntary termination of pregnancy before full term is called MTP, or induced abortion. Okay, it was legalized in India in 1971. Okay, it is legalized in India if you are 18 years, above 18 years of age. It is legal in India, it's not illegal, but with strict conditions to avoid any misuse. Okay, it refers to the voluntary or intentional termination of pregnancy before reaching the full term. Before reaching the full term, if you are pregnant, okay, and if you do not want to continue the pregnancy because of certain conditions, can be there in rape cases or in when you are mentally not prepared and accidentally you got pregnant, or if there are certain health conditions with the fetus and you don't want to continue the pregnancy, then also it can happen. So this is known as medical termination of pregnancy. These are considered relatively safe during the first trimester, which is up to 12 weeks of pregnancy. Okay, second trimester abortions are much more riskier. So if if anybody they try or they decide to terminate the pregnancy, it is suggested to do it in the first trimester, right? All right, so that was about MTP. Now we come to sexually transmitted infections, STI, or which is known as venereal diseases, or it's also known as STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. Okay, so these are the diseases which are transmitted through sexual intercourse, right? And some of the infections are hepatitis B and HIV. So this hepatitis B and HIV, these are sexually transmitted diseases, but it can also happen by sharing the injection needles, surgical instruments, etc. Now, how can you be free from these infections? By certain principles. You have to avoid sex, unprotected sex with unknown partners. When you don't know the partner, try not to have unprotected sex with the partner. You should not have multiple partners with whom you are having unprotected sex, because you cannot have the medical history of each and every one. So when you don't know somebody, try not to have unprotected sex and try to avoid multiple sexual partners in order to avoid sexually transmitted infections, right? Always try to use condoms during coitus, because as I said, condoms are not just helpful in order to control the birth, but condoms are really helpful when you want to avoid the sexually transmitted diseases, right? So always use condom, and you should always avoid the unprotected sexual intercourse. And in case of any doubt, you should always go to a qualified doctor. Okay, you should always go to a qualified doctor, right? So that was the thing about sexually transmitted diseases. Now we come to the last topic of the chapter, which is infertility. What is infertility? Infertility is the state of being unable to produce offspring even after sexual intercourse is infertility. So basically, if a couple is trying the unprotected sexual intercourse for like 6 months to 1 year of time and still they are not able to conceive a child, still they are not able to conceive a baby, that is the case of infertility. There can be a lot of reasons for infertility. Okay, to assist such couples, there are specialized techniques such as ART, which is assisted reproductive techniques, that covers IVF, in vitro fertilization, and also embryo transfer. ठीक है? So basically, जब natural method से आपके sperm और ovum का fusion नहीं हो पा रहा है, fertilization नहीं हो पा रहा है, so there are certain artificial methods as well, right? जिसमें IVF आ जाता है and जिसमें embryo transfer भी आता है. So in this method, particularly known as okay, so basically what happens in IVF? Outside the body, यानी in vitro lab में what happens, sperm को collect किया जाता है, ovum को collect किया जाता है, दोनों को fertilize करवा के after the zygote formation female की body में डाल दिया जाता है, right? So that the development takes place in female body, because infertility is a case जिसमें बहुत सारे reasons हो सकते हैं. Male का sperm count कम हो सकता है, स्पर्म की मोटिलिटी कम हो सकती है, इन फीमेल बॉडी फेलोपियन ट्यूब ब्लॉक हो सकती है, ठीक है, यूट्रस का डेवलपमेंट प्रॉपर्ली नहीं हुआ है इसलिए हो सकता है. देयर आर लॉट ऑफ रीजंस ऑफ इनफर्टिलिटी, स्ट्रेस, alcohol consumption, smoking, drug abuse, a lot of reasons are there. So when natural method से आपका fertilization नहीं हो पा रहा है, so then what we do, we go for different methods, which is IVF, like in vitro fertilization, जहाँ पे आपका sperm और ovum lab में लेके fuse करके After that, the development takes place inside the body. Embryo transfer. Embryo is prepared or developed in the lab, and once the embryo is developed, it is put back into the female body. There are techniques like gift. Okay, gift is gamete fallopian tube transfer, gamete into a fallopian tube. Then we have zift, where the zygote is there. So G for gamete, Z for zygote. When the gametes are transferred in the fallopian tube, or when the zygote is transferred in the fallopian tube. So these are the techniques which are done inside the lab. Okay. And then there is one more method, that is test tube baby. Here, ova from the wife or any donor is taken if the ova is not healthy of the wife. So from any donor also you can take the ova. Okay, and sperms from husband or the donor. If the sperms are healthy of the husband, then it's okay. Otherwise, you can take it from a donor, and they are collected and they are induced to form zygote under stimulated conditions in the laboratory. So the baby or the zygote is basically developed inside the laboratory in the test tube. That is why it's known as test tube baby. Okay. All right. So that was it, and that is how we have finished all the 3 chapters of the unit, that was reproduction. Okay. I hope you guys liked the session, and I hope that this session was really helpful for you, and I really hope that we have covered all the things, ताकि ये जो एकदम quick revision हमने आपके लिए किया है in 5 days, we are trying our best कि हम 5 days में आपको सब revise करवा दें. Okay, before going, I would like to again tell you that if this session was helpful, do like, share, subscribe to the channel. Also, I would say, I've been telling you this again and again. In the description, you will get a link, and please fill the form, or go into that link. It's going to be really helpful, and it will be very beneficial for you. So yeah, that's it. And tomorrow you'll have another session, and then one more session. 5 days revision class hai. So 2 more sessions bache, and then it will be completely revised for you. Okay. So I hope you like the session, and keep studying. Stay tuned. Bye.